Good morning and welcome to The Point. It is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Television Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, and those of you on GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. This morning we are talking, I've titled the program this morning, Back to School in COVIDious Times. I have joining us is Minister of Education Emmalin, Pierre, Chief Education Officer Angella Findley, as well as Permanent Secretary Kevin Andall, who is expected to join us later in the program. Oh, he's here already? No, not yet. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I see he is joining us now and ready to be admitted. Morning. Let me see. I'm not hearing you, Miss Findley.
Good morning. Good morning.
There we go. Cooking with gas there now. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies, let's get right into it. Miss Findley, just tilt your computer screen up a little bit so I can see more of the top of your head. Go a little bit more again. Right. Okay. There we go. We're good to go now. All right. So, ladies, I'm not sure who's going to start, but let's first of all before we get into the schedule, let's start with plans for the reopening of schools in these COVIDious times. Any one of you can hear me?
Hello.
Yes, so I want to thank you for this opportunity. To be on this morning to continue our efforts in informing the general public as to what is happening, what is going to happen as it relates to the reopening of school. I'm sure you have an appreciation that this is a very challenging time for all stakeholders in education, and we continue to make every effort to ensure that we provide this important opportunity to our children. I always say we do have a choice. And the choice is that we can indefinitely leave our children at home until COVID is totally gone. So until we hear nothing more about COVID, and then we can reopen. But do we want to even consider that option? We can't. If you're thinking about the future of Grenada, if you're thinking about our children and securing their future, it means we have to put all hands on deck and find a way to do this in their interest. And so we have announced that school will be opening on the 7th of September. It is not normal times. And in the past, we just say school opens on the 7th of September. But now we are going to actually be adding to that a schedule of how this is going to happen based on the current circumstances. Just to also say that at 8 p.m. tonight, I will be doing a more detailed address. But this morning, we are going to provide as much information as we can. So I'll allow the Acting Chief Education Officer to give a little insight as to how that rollout is going to happen that first week. And I think maybe this morning we can just focus on the first week of school. How is that going to look in, as you said, COVIDious times?
Just before you do that, Miss CEO, just let me take a quick break. We seem to be having some issues with the visual for the three of you. So let's take a quick break, see if we can sort that out, and then we'll be back with To The Point. We'll be right back. Viewers and listeners, stay with us.
It's new, innovative and classy. And cut above the rest. One-stop shop for that house, kitchen, customized doors and windows, and even your paint job. We also sell quartz and solid surface countertops. And even in hardware, we offer best prices, excellent service, efficiency, and reliability. Visit us at Dusty Family Grand House or call telephone number 440-6757.
In December 2019, there was a cluster of pneumonia cases in China. Investigations found that it was caused by a previously unknown virus, now named the 2019 novel coronavirus. In this video, we'll take a quick look at what's currently known about the virus. Keep in mind that this is a new virus, and what's known about the virus now might change in the future. Coronaviruses are a large group of viruses. They consist of a core of genetic material surrounded by an envelope with protein spikes. This gives it the appearance of a crown. Crown in Latin is called corona, and that's how these viruses get their name. There are different types of coronaviruses that cause respiratory and sometimes gastrointestinal symptoms. Respiratory disease can range from the common cold to pneumonia, and in most people, the symptoms tend to be mild. However, there are some types of coronaviruses that can cause severe disease. These include the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, first identified in China in 2003, and the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus that was first identified in Saudi Arabia in 2012. The 2019 novel coronavirus was first identified in China. It initially occurred in a group of people with pneumonia who'd been associated with a seafood and live animal market in the city of Wuhan. The disease has since spread from those who were sick to others, including family members and healthcare staff. There are many cases at present, and the disease has spread within China and also to a number of other countries. So, where did the virus come from? It's known that coronaviruses circulate in a range of animals. Sometimes these viruses can make the jump from animals to humans. This is called a spillover and could be due to a range of factors such as mutations in the virus or increased contact between humans and animals. For example, MERS-CoV is known to be transmitted from camels and SARS-CoV from civet cats. The animal reservoir of the 2019 novel coronavirus is not known yet. How is it transmitted? The exact dynamics of how the virus is transmitted is yet to be determined. In general, respiratory viruses are usually transmitted through droplets created when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or through something that has been contaminated with the virus. People most at risk of infection from the novel coronavirus are those in close contact with animals, such as live animal market workers, and those who are caring for people infected with the virus, such as family members or healthcare workers. So, how does the disease present? Well, from what is known so far, there can be a number of symptoms ranging from mild to severe. There can be fever and respiratory symptoms such as cough and shortness of breath. In more severe cases, there's been pneumonia, kidney failure, and death. The mortality rate is not known yet. How can we tell whether someone is infected? The infection can be diagnosed by a test called PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. This test identifies the virus based on its genetic fingerprint. There's currently no specific medication for the virus, and
welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with officials in the Ministry of Education, Minister Emmalin, Pierre, Chief Education Officer Angella, Findley, and PS Kevin Andall. We are experiencing some issues with our vision. With the visuals, providing video for our guests, but we can still hear them. And in the interest of time, we won't waste much time. As long as you can get the information, I think that should be sufficient. Even though we can see their pretty and handsome faces, we'll continue to share the information in the meantime. Before we took the break, we were Mrs. Findley, you were about to give us the schedule for when school reopens on Monday, God willing. Share with us, please.
Yes, good morning once again. So to get a message over to the general public, one that would create the most consistency and alleviate the most uncertainty, we have developed, after much consultation with all our key stakeholders, a national schedule which would run for the first 2 weeks of the academic term, Michaelmas term. However, due to some very unique circumstances, there are 7 schools which would be issuing a schedule which somewhat differs from that of the national schedule. And we are therefore asking parents and guardians to be mindful of this and to be assured that those schools will contact them directly through various means to share with them their unique schedule. So I want to start by just identifying those schools that would have that slightly different schedule. They are as follows: Wesley College, the Anglican High School, St. Joseph Convent, Grenville, SAS, Grenada Christian Academy, St. John's Christian Secondary, and St. Rose Modern Secondary. So they will contact parents with their slightly different schedule. Okay, and theirs will be subject to modification. So when it does come out, in some regards, it may end up very close to ours, if not there, because they are still adjusting some things in some cases. Now, for the rest of the nation, for the other schools, parents and guardians are asked to be guided by what I'm about to detail. Okay, permit me to read in some measure. So for the Victoria School for Special Education, beginning Monday, the 7th of September. Okay, parents conference, morning shift. So there's a morning shift at that school, and the parents for the morning shift, they would the school would notify them, they will come in. Then on Tuesday, the 8th, it would be orientation for the morning shift students. On Wednesday, the 9th, there would be the parent conference for the afternoon shift students. Thursday, September the 10th, orientation for students in the afternoon shift. And on Friday, the 11th September, postmortem for all parents. For the other special education needs centers, on Monday the 7th, we'd have the parent conference for levels 5, 6, and 7. On Tuesday, September 8th, orientation for students of levels 5, 6, and 7. On Wednesday the 9th, parent conference for levels 2, 3, and 4. On Thursday, September 10th, orientation for students of levels 2, 3, and 4. And on Friday, September 11th, orientation and parent conference for lower functioning students, those with their extra special situations. They'll be accommodated on Friday, September 11th. Now we go to the preschools. On Monday, September the 7th, we have the parent-teachers conference for students of the 4+. Tuesday, September 8th, return of the 4+ students, all 4+ students. On Wednesday, September 9th, parent-teachers conference for all 3+ students. On Thursday, September 10th, the return of all 3+ students. For the primary schools, September 7th, grade 6 students. Tuesday, September 8th, grade 5 students. Wednesday, September 9th, grade 4 students. Thursday, September 10th, grades the KG and grade 3 students. And Friday, September 11th, grades 1 and 2. Secondary schools, Monday, September 7th, Form 5 students. Tuesday, September 8th, Form 4 students. Wednesday, September 9th, Form 3 students. Thursday, September 10th, Form 2 students. And Friday, September 11th, Form 1 students. And that's the schedule for the first week of school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Findley. With the schedule that is in place and what is expected to be more or less a disrupted semester or term in school, how do you think this would affect students' performance?
Okay. I should say that for that first week when the students are going in, we have labeled that week orientation and needs assessment week. So during that week, students are coming in just for one day. And we have to bear in mind the reason why it is happening this week. For many students, or the majority of students in Grenada, we are seeing from our data, were disconnected from their teachers since March 13th. Or let's say, if you jump it down, March 16th. Hence the reason for that need to reestablish contact and to ascertain their state of readiness for instruction, whatever challenge they may be having, and to have those students engage into a sort of morale boosting and psychosocial type activities. So hence that one day in that week. Now, when we looked at the data coming from all schools during our periods of consultation, we are seeing that due to the distancing regulations and the protocols, most schools or many of the schools would not be able to accommodate their full slate of students throughout the week. So on any given day, we are seeing that schools may be able to accommodate about 50% of their students at any given time, which means that for some schools, and there are some schools that can accommodate everybody every day because of their numbers. So when those children come in and then there's interaction with their parents, there will be schools issuing their school-specific timetables. Now, while some have access to the media and they may be able to get that information out electronically, there are some children, again, that we are seeing that are disconnected. They don't have electricity or they don't have internet. So therefore, their WhatsApp and those things cannot reach them. So we have to ensure that we get each child into the school in that first week to do that assessment. Thereafter, we'll be able to shape what the rest of the term really looks like. So hence the reason why we are ensuring that each child comes in. And that's why we are. So as it evolves, we will be better positioned to determine what the rest of the term would really play out like. So where children cannot be in, we are already putting measures in place to ensure that we can have that blended approach to learning for this term.
Earlier, Ms. Findley, you highlighted 6 or 7 schools that would put their own schedule together. Why is that so?
Well, as I said in my introductory remarks, there are some schools with some unique circumstances at this time. And based on those unique circumstances, they have developed a schedule which differs slightly from the one that we are having as the national one.
During the first week, the orientation and needs assessment week, would there be the distribution of tablets to the schools and the students and teachers during that week, or will that come at a later date?
Right. So, please permit me to have P.S. Andall zero in on what would happen in terms of devices.
Go ahead, Mr. Andall.
Yes, good morning. You're hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Right. Good morning. And good morning to all of you over in Radio Land, TV Land, and social media platforms. We indeed, during that period, will be having distribution of the devices for secondary schools. Right at this moment, we are distributing devices for teachers. So from the 31st of August to the 4th, devices to all secondary school teachers. During the week of the 7th September to the 17th, student distribution from 5 students, the devices will be distributed to them at the various schools. And all other distribution of devices will follow suit as the weeks progress. So within that period, Blossom, indeed, we are going to distribute the devices to the Form 5 students. And we would say, I would like to make it clear here that the distribution of the devices would be to the parents of the students, not the individual student, because the devices would have to be accounted for, and there should be someone responsible for that device, and that would be the parents of the respective students.
When the announcement was made about the registration fee for the devices, there have been some kick-up from members of the public, some of them saying initially when the plan was highlighted during the election campaign, the plan was for there to be free provision, or the devices would be free to the parents and the students. And now there's a $50 registration fee. How would you respond to that?
The registration fee is, I want to make that clear, is not for the device. It's for the ecosystem, the e-learning ecosystem, which is a combination of stuff. The device, the ebooks application. We also, in months coming, will also have the Microsoft 365 suite for students. There are a host of other applications and initiatives associated with the e-learning. That registration fee is for the whole initiative and the costs associated to one, procuring the device and all the logistics, the licensing for the various apps. In total, if we look at the cost that would be associated with a device and an individual device, is about $1,200+ for an individual student. And if you do the math and you multiply that by 9,600, is a very significant cost. What we're saying to the parents, what we're saying to our stakeholders, that we're just asking for a small donation, a contribution to the initiative, which is an investment in your child. And to make it also clear that the parents who are already paid for the school books program would be paying $25. So some parents would not be paying $50 for the device itself or the ecosystem, as we say, but they will be paying $25 per device associated with the ecosystem. So to re-emphasize here is really the cost is for the ecosystem, not really the device, and it's a contribution towards the whole initiative.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand the school books and the devices. So if I'm part of the school books program, I pay $25 and I get both the books and the device?
No. The school books program registration fee is $25.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll pay $25 for the school books program. And you'll pay $25 for the ebooks.
Okay.
And that would total to $50. If you're not part of the school books program, then you're expected to pay the $50 registration.
Okay, so either way you have to pay $50.
So either way you'd have to pay $50.
Okay.
But the parents who are in the National School Books program would have a subsidized registration fee towards the ebooks.
Okay. All right, I understand it better now. And that takes me to another query that I've heard from members of the public. If I am getting a device for my child or children, how would I know if I should buy books? How many books to buy? Which books to buy? How would I know that? And when would I know that?
Well, we have said that in a number of our press conferences, that the National School Books program would continue, and the ebooks is supplementary to that of the textbooks. So the textbooks would be the main text going forward. But because of remote learning and what is expected during this term and the rest of the school year because of COVID-19, the blended approach would be taken. And there will be a number of remote sessions for students. That is where the ebooks come in. It is supplementary text to supplement that of the hard text. So students would be able, when they are working remotely, to access a text that would enrich the learning experience. When they are face-to-face, the teacher would use both means. A supplementary text, as it said, is supplementary to support the learning initiative. So there is an added benefit to the student at this time with the hard copy books and as well as the ebooks. So parents are expected to indeed get the school books, which we have said in a number of instances before, and also the ebooks via the devices will be available to the students also.
Also, to add to that, Blossom, we also made the point that in that transition period, we do not want to just spring an ebook on a child who has been for all his life using a textbook. So that is why this year is so very important for transition as we move closer towards use of ebooks, that we are transitioning from one point to the other. And so both complementing each other in this first year is so important. Government has taken a policy decision as it relates to the move towards ebooks. But the first year of introduction, we made it very clear that we are going to be using one to complement the other as children get used to, get comfortable, as parents get comfortable, teachers get comfortable with that process. So that is why we have introduced it in this way for the transition purposes as well.
Would I, as a parent, have a choice to say, I only want to get either the books and not the tablet, or just the tablet and not the books? And would I also have the option to say my child already has a tablet? Can the ebooks be put onto that tablet?
Well, I normally make the reference to use of your personal device, in that we would be rather concerned that if that device, your personal device, is not available, that the child would be inconvenienced. So we want to make sure that there's this device that is like your book, your tool for school, that you use for that purpose and that purpose only, education only. It's an educational tool that if you have a personal device and you look at Netflix and you play games and you're out in the yard and you go to the beach with it, you could use your personal one for that. But the device that is an educational tool, the expectation is that you use it just for that purpose. But there are also features that are on that device for educational purposes. And so we want to make sure that that is preserved. As it relates to book or the device and a parent choosing, I would simply say that a parent who goes that route would be putting the child at a disadvantage. I have had the opportunity to go through some of the samples of the ebooks, and I don't think there's any child that will not be better off because of that experience, right? And in addition to that, of course, as we said, the teacher would still in this year be using that textbook and expect the child to have, of course, if the child does not have, I want to make this point, that the teacher at the classroom level will improvise and to make arrangement for the device to be used. But we are encouraging that parents use the double approach for this school year.
I have somebody on WhatsApp that's asking a question. Schools in St. Vincent were scheduled to open yesterday, but they pushed it back to this coming Monday because the government thought there weren't enough protocols in place to accommodate the number of students. We know that school home is expected to open. Schools in Grenada are expected to open on Monday. The question is, do you think Grenada has structures in place to welcome students with the proper protocols in place, seeing that we are following most of the patterns the government of St. Vincent have been doing during the COVID era?
I'd like to report the test, which is when we brought back our Form 5 students in all of our secondary schools to prepare for the CISPEC examination. And the second thing I like to refer to is the fact that I don't think our comparison can be to that of other islands in the region. We have been pushing and we have been observing, we have been experimenting. So that period when our Form 5 students went back, I believe it was an experiment for us in one way or the other. And so with the protocols that we used then, which is mainly the same protocols that we are going to use now. And the fact that we are reducing our numbers for management purposes, not just space, but also for management purposes, I believe that we are in a position that we can make this happen. Now, note, I'm not saying it's going to be the easiest thing to do. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be things that will make this a challenge. But with the strength of the leadership at the school level, with the cooperation of all of our stakeholders, I believe it is possible. We are very confident. But I also want to make this point, Blossom, that we've always said this. Once we open school, whether it was last term or this term, every week we would do a review. And after that review, if we have to change the decision, then we would do so. Our primary objective is to keep our students and our teachers, our staff at the various schools, to keep them safe and to ensure that we are monitoring the environment. So what is happening globally, regionally, locally as it relates to COVID-19 is also going to inform what happens. So we are not going to close our eyes to the circumstances around us, and it will inform our decisions on a weekly basis. And I feel comfortable that with the existing protocols, with all of the consultations, all of the briefing, all of the structures that we have put in place, all of the guides that we have provided, all of the support system and mechanism we've put in place, I believe this is possible. As I always say, the option to stay home indefinitely is always there, but we have to give this the best shot that we possibly can. It is possible, and we are going to work towards that.
Like you said, bringing back the Form 5s last term was more testing ground for the ministry. Is there any major not lesson, but any major thing that came out of that quote-unquote experiment that you have applied for reopening for more students next week?
So I'll allow CEO to comment on that, but I think one of the things that period would have helped us to see is how the numbers can be managed, right? And that is why, for me, very critical in this process is that we do not get ourselves caught up in this fantasy of having every child turn out on the 7th of September. I know some people are anxious to have the children at school, but let us make sure that we do it in a way to the benefit of the child, first of all, right? And also to the benefit of all stakeholders involved in teaching and learning at the school. So Findley may want to comment more on the return of Form 5s. Generally speaking, Blossom, the reports and feedback were extremely positive from all of the schools that we have interacted with.
Ms. Findley, just unmute your mic. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, there's really very little more that I can add to that, what Minister has explained. So the truth is, up to this point, we are comfortable. When the Form 5s went back, it was basically 1/5 of the school's population for most of the schools. So at this stage, we are very comfortable that schools can safely accommodate 1/5 of the population on any given day. And it's for this reason that we have scheduled just 1/5, approximately 1/5 of every school's population to be unplanned on any given day, while the entire staff body is expected to be present at that time. So so on that day, again, it call it an experiment in a sense, because it's children that we didn't have there before. On the day when the Form 5s come in, it will be the same age group that was on the compound when we reopened in June. So now we'd have the Form 5s coming out again, and the more senior students. And there are other reasons why we are having them in that particular order as well. Okay, there are many other things that we factored into setting up the schedule the way we did. So once we get that, we do know that there are schools, I said, where the population is very small. In some cases, the entire school is about 80 students. And we look at the expanse of the school's compound. Such schools would have no difficulty when we kick in with the school-specific schedule to have everybody on the compound for the entire week. But unfortunately, for most of our schools, that would not be possible. Some may just be 2 days per week, some just one. But for the week of the 7th, we are quite comfortable that every school on the island can accommodate 1/5 of its students' population.
Just to squeeze in, Blossom, one other reason why that approach in the first week is so important. In speaking to many of the principals I interacted with directly, to them, that first week, it was an opportunity to make changes as they went along. So that first week gave them the opportunity to settle in. And so on the first day, of course, there's a little nervousness. There's a little, will we get this right? And in every case that I interacted, they said by the end of the first week, persons felt a lot more comfortable. The routine started coming in and people started understanding what was expected. Doesn't mean that there won't be challenges, but by the end of the first week, most persons expressed that they became a lot more comfortable because remember, they were home since March. And so this approach of 1 level per day will also help significantly in teachers and principals feeling very comfortable at the end of the week that, look, this is possible, it's going to work, we need to make this switch here, we need to make that change there, and I believe it's going to all be good in the long run.
So I want to also add, Blossom, that in the second week, taking into consideration what is due to happen in the first week, the second week would be a student-free week for most schools. Again, where that week, the teachers would be involved in professional development activities. They would be looking at the data that was collected in the first week and strategizing to finalize their school-specific schedule. So that would be the emphasis of the week beginning the 14th. So children, unless they get some special information, students are expected to be home once again with their parents for that week. So that's from the 14th to the 18th.
There's a concern on WhatsApp that I've heard people express for some days now in relation to children who use public transportation and what is termed as the lapse in adhering to protocols on these public transportation, specifically buses. Is that a major concern for the ministry, where you have seen bus drivers, conductors, even passengers not wearing their masks? I've heard of some buses not doing the sanitation process completely. How much of a concern is that for the ministry?
Yesterday, Blossom, I was on another program, and this very matter came up as a matter of concern. And the program basically, went into the discussion of the law and the police, and, that's okay. But I find it very difficult that you would have to do so much to encourage people to protect themselves. Because when you go on a bus and you don't wear a mask, you're also exposing yourself. You're also putting yourself at risk. And so I really want to use this opportunity to encourage our people out there, to encourage our students that as you go out, ensure that once you leave home, you are wearing your mask. We have provided special accommodation in the school at the times when you can remove your mask. The protocols are very clear. The times when you take a little breathing space, the time when you take a breathing break. But the mask wearing, it's not a punishment. It is actually a protective measure. And I want to help us to understand the importance. And you see, if we do not follow those guidelines, if we do not take those things seriously, it means that once there is a case, it puts far more people at risk because far more people are not doing what they're supposed to do. So yes, to answer directly, we are concerned about this, but I look at it this way. If more people would be so kind to protect themselves and protect others, then it doesn't become a concern of the Ministry of Education. So I just want to appeal to parents, appeal to the general public. Wearing the mask is for your good. Wearing the mask is to protect you. And I would hate to believe that we have so many people who don't care about themselves. So this is how I would put it. Let us do the right thing. Let us not depend on the law to make us do something that is for our own protection. And of course, the police has been lenient, but sometimes we have to decide where that line ends, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with something very serious. Let us not take leniency for granted. Let us not take the fact that somebody didn't charge you for not wearing your mask for granted. Let us do what is the responsible thing to do as parents, as citizens. But most importantly, I'll end on that note. Let us set an example for our children.
Well said indeed. Well said indeed, Minister. Thank you very much. This is where we need to end the program, but you have a national address scheduled for this evening at 8. Quickly tell us what we can expect in that address. I know you can't give me the details, but just what would be highlighted in that address?
I think that things really to look at what are the key challenges, how we're going to address those key challenges, and to give a sort of insight as to what are those key things that we are going to be focusing on as a Ministry of Education in this coming year? Because I want us to be very, very careful that COVID-19 doesn't distract us so much that all we focus on is COVID-19. Very important that we focus on that. But remember, the education of our children is also a top priority. And so we have to create that balance. So we take all the measures that we have to put in place to address this, to protect our people, to protect our children, teachers, and so on. But we also have to focus on strengthening and building our education system. And of course, the hope that I always try to provide to people when I speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Thank you to the PS and the Chief Education Officer. Of course, we'll hear more details about the reopening of schools scheduled for Monday in this evening's national address. Thank you to the three of you. Have yourselves a good day and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blossom, and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Pleasant day to everyone.
Thanks, you too, Ms. Findley. That was Minister of Education Emmalin, Pierre, Chief Education Officer Angella Findley, and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Kevin Andall, our guests this morning, as Grenada prepares for the reopening of schools scheduled for this Monday, September 7th, 2020. The minister is expected to deliver a national address tonight at 8 p.m. It will be broadcast on GBN platforms, so stay tuned for that information as we continue to get the necessary information that we need to protect ourselves and our children as they go out to school from Monday. That's the end of the program and the end of my time here. Up next is the CPL match scheduled for this morning. The pre-game warm-up starts in just about 5 minutes or so, and this morning's match will feature top-of-the-table Trinbago Knight Riders against bottom-of-the-table St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. The match will be carried on GBN, Channel 7, 11 and 20, as well as Classic 105. Have yourselves a productive Wednesday. Stay safe and stay tuned for CPL.
Are you looking for quality herbs and herbal supplements, or are